Hello, I'm Amara Jones, and welcome to Caffeine TV, your daily video news brief. Here to take you through 3 headline numbers in just 3 minutes, giving you a different take on everything from housing policy to the Real Housewives. The first number up today is 28, as in the 28th Amendment to the Constitution that would abolish midterm elections. That amendment was outlined in a recent New York Times op-ed penned by David Shanzer and Jay Sullivan of Duke University. And what they essentially argue is that even though 90 million Americans will turn up to vote today, as we've talked about here before, that will still put us on track to have the lowest voter turnouts in any midterm election in the nation's history since the first one way back in 1790. And that essentially, since these elections are now undemocratic, we need to move them to every 4 years where a majority of the American public does turn out to express their will. They also make the point that having 435 elections every 2 years for the members of the House of Representatives places an enormous amount of pressure on them to raise money, almost $3,000 a day in fact. And if they're making calls to fat cats, they're not taking calls from you and me. And so I think that this proposal is worth looking at, and just because the Constitution was written at the end of the 18th century clearly doesn't mean that we shouldn't change it. We've changed it 27 times already. And look at it this way, you wouldn't have to listen to those attack ads every 2 years, $4 billion worth. You just have to listen to them every 4 years. My personal favorite this year is Joni Ernst out of Iowa, who's running for the Senate there, who in her ad brags about growing up castrating pigs. The next number up today is 1, as in 1 billion. That's the number of Facebook users that can now update their status and post photos of them turning up at the club without the government knowing about it. And that's because Facebook says that it would now allow that site to be accessed from a secure browser called Tor. Now, no, we're not saying Thor, it's Tor, and that stands for the Onion router. And no, not the Onion as in the farcical news site. No, this as is in the Onion router that was developed by the Navy Department for Secure Communications. Now, it's not like Facebook has had a sudden change of heart on privacy. These changes occur in the wake of revelations by Edward Snowden, who says that no one should use Google or Facebook because they're essentially open books for the government. But the problem is that privacy has now become a matter of dollars and cents for them, particularly in key markets like Europe that are putting pressure on Facebook to protect the privacy of users across the European continent. So maybe we didn't get Tor out of benevolence from Facebook, but however we got it, we ought to accept it. The next number up today is 15, as in 15%. Now that's the percentage of drop-off in boys participating in football in key states across the country that are Democratic. As a matter of fact, David Leonhardt points out today in the New York Times that states that have had the largest participation in boys participating in football are those which lean blue, that are Democratic. And it got me to thinking about why Romney supporters were up to twice as more likely than Obama supporters to allow their kids to play football. And it got me to thinking about maybe it has something to do with divergent views on violence. I mean, some people look at the shootings that we've had recently and shrug their shoulders and want to buy more guns, and other people are increasingly revolted by it. And so while I feel bad for athletic departments across the country that rely on football, if the drop-off in participation is because we want to make America a less violent place, that's a trade-off we ought to be able to live with.